Well, good morning. Happy Monday to everybody. Happy Monday to you, Vicky.
Thank you, and to you, and a bright Monday. It isn't here. It's as dull as I don't know what.
Well, at least it stopped raining in Wales, where I am. How the dickens was your last week? Were you a busy girl?
Do you know what? Last week was an amazing week for me because it went so quickly. I had set myself some challenges, and don't you just love it when you get done what you say you're going to do? So, yeah, I enjoyed it, and I got my accounts completed for my accountant, so that makes her a happy bunny as well. So, how about you? What was your week like?
Well, it seemed to have about 4 Thursdays, if I'm being honest. It was very busy, and Mondays are the busiest day. But my children go back to school today, so we're very, very happy about that. And if there's some noise in the background, it's them getting ready. And if you've got children of your own, you'll understand exactly what it's like. Anyway, what we're talking about this week is we're talking about coping strategies. Which is a sort of very loose framework for us to sort of chat in, I suppose, about different things. And especially after the weekend with this announcement of yet another lockdown #2, I think they're calling it, or whatever it is, #lockdown2. How on earth are we going to cope? Is the what we're talking about, but also. What I thought we'd try and do is we talk about maybe how about we've coped in the past with situations that we've found ourselves in. So I don't know if you're looking for one piece of advice for coping strategies. What's the biggest thing that you've come across in your time, Vicky?
Well, for me, I mean, there's so many different ways we can cope with things. But I think for me, I didn't cope very well with a lot of stuff in the past. And I turned to substances, food, alcohol that would make me feel better quickly or help me to forget everything that was going on around me, which is not really coping at all. It's just kind of distracting and putting things off and procrastinating. But what I tend to do now is really something that I learned through recovery from both those issues, and that's to just stay with the stuff that I can control. So I need to ask myself questions. Can I control this? If the answer is no, I have to let it go. And that means erase it out of my thoughts. And if the answer is yes, then I need to look at, okay, so what's the first step that I need to take that is going to help me to feel more able to deal with what's going on? And that is kind of the key coping strategy for everything that I find goes on in my life. How about you?
Well, it's an interesting thought. Are you somebody that lives in shoeboxes? So everything that comes along. So I've got this thing about this sort of conveyor belt of life.
Love it.
And you get these shoeboxes. And you open the box, and you go, okay, this is whatever it is. You open the box, and you either deal with it, or you close the box, and then move on to the next one. I think that I've compartmentalized life a bit, and I deal with it in shoeboxes. Okay. Now, as an addict, because we're both addicts, we know we're both addicts. Maybe the booze part of it anesthetizes that box, and we just think, I'll do that tomorrow.
Correct. Yeah.
And everybody I meet has got all these they haven't got one shoebox to deal with. They've actually got like a lorry load of shoeboxes to deal with. And it's like, well, hold on a minute, where do I start with all of this? And then the problem just becomes overwhelming. And as soon as you're overwhelmed, that's it. You can't cope.
Absolutely. And overwhelm, that's the thing that I think has kind of really been brought to light with the crazy amount of time that the media is spending on throwing information and figures at people. And they're looking at social media online, they're looking at the news, they're looking at Twitter and people's opinions, and getting so overwhelmed with what is going on that for a lot of people, they just can't handle it. And as you say, that overwhelm means that then we tend to do nothing, or we run away and anesthetize ourselves because we don't know how else to cope.
How did you find the government's PowerPoint at the weekend. It was just so awful, wasn't it?
Honestly, I have stopped watching.
Oh, right, okay.
I just cannot, because it just winds me up so much. Right at the very beginning, do you remember when we had the daily whatever?
Yeah.
I think I stuck with that maybe for the first couple of weeks, and felt like throwing shoes or any object to hand at the TV, because the way that they were not answering questions, deflecting, especially when they started later on answering people's questions, I just couldn't bear it.
Right.
I had to just turn it off. And all I heard, I think, was, next slide, please. Next slide, please. And you're looking at these figures, and I'm sure everybody else watching, even if you're in economics and stuff and you understand the graphs, just showing that to the general public, how helpful is that? No, that's classic overwhelm, isn't it?
Well, you could have just had one sort of slide, and it's got not in the shit, in the shit.
Yeah.
we're sort of gone over into the really in the shit bit.
Yeah.
But that's about honesty. And I think when you're not coping, that's at the time when you're not being honest with yourself. And I found out when I wasn't coping, I'd lie to everybody. Yeah. But the biggest person or the main person I was lying to was me.
Absolutely.
I was being dishonest to myself, with myself. And also when you're using narcotics or booze or shopping, whatever it is, I know people that are just buying on Amazon because every time they press the button on Amazon, it gives them a little kick of adrenaline. It's another coping mechanism.
Absolutely. And we know that dopamine reward, that hit is huge. And the more you get it, the more you want of it. And then suddenly one hit doesn't work and you need 2 or 3 or 4 or more often. And yeah, I find that for me, I don't need to get that reward hit now, but the actual process allows people to switch off and lose themselves, doesn't it? So if it is shopping, for example, it's not the actual hitting the button that's the thing. It's the whole process of, where do I look? Which website do I look at? Shall I start comparing this with that? And it's the whole process of it that leads up to that eventual hit of the button. And then, of course, the kicker comes, doesn't it? Because when the stuff arrives, it's kind of like, oh, okay. And then you get the panic that sets in because you get the credit card statement or the bank statement and you realize how much you spent, which creates more anxiety, which then means that we want to do what? Get that dopamine reward hit because we need to feel somehow better about ourselves. And this is, when we talk about addiction, because you and I, as you say, we're both addicts. We both have alcohol in common. I had food as well. And it's that whole process. Neither of us chose to be, did we?
I can't remember anybody ever saying, I was really glad when I became an alcoholic. Or the day I became a heroin addict, that was amazing. No, nobody ever talks about that, do they?
No, absolutely not. So it's a process, and we do it as a way of coping. And this is kind of, really relevant because in lockdown, there's a number of people who, without a doubt, know and admit to themselves and to others that they're drinking more or have drunk more. And then when we came out, they started to get themselves back on track and it was absolutely fine. And those, that's a lot of ordinary people did that, but they were fully aware of it. And the difference is what you were talking about is that they weren't in denial, but you and I absolutely were. And you know what? It's that part of it, isn't it? That means that we just need to hold our hands up and go, okay, I'm actually struggling because I don't have the tools and I haven't been taught how to handle this stuff. And that's not our fault. That's just the way that in the environment that we've grown up in, what we saw, what we learned when we were little. And that was the coping strategy I watched my dad use.
Did you think that life was going to turn out like this when you were a little girl? Because I know I'm older than you, but
not that much.
I'm being kind. No, look. When I was born in the 60s, I remember seeing Man Land on the Moon and all that stuff, and Blue Peter being on TV, and life looked fantastically wonderful, and we thought everything was going to be different. But it's not, because we've actually ended up being like our parents. And I know, and we've ended up growing old.
Yeah.
You know, I'm looking at all these last week, Sean Connery, Nobby Stiles, Bobby Chart. I met Bobby Chart. You know, all these people that were young. I look back and think, gosh, how old was Bobby Charlton when I was growing up? And actually, although he got no hair and a big comb over, it was actually really quite young.
Right.
And now suddenly they're in their 80s, and it's like, shit, life's missed them. You know, it's gone by.
Yeah.
And that's what's going through people's fingers every day. That's the hard bit, isn't it?
And when we talk about coping, I think we get lost in the minutiae of the daily stuff, or we start to expand. We expand a little bit, and we start going, but what if? What's going to happen in a month, or 3 months, or 6 months? And we lose the whole big picture. I mean, I have no clue. You asked me that question a second ago. What did I think life was going to be like when this little girl? Honestly, not the foggiest. I don't think it ever crossed my mind. I didn't think about it because I was too busy being in the here and now and being a kid. And I had no clue what the next day was going to bring. Of course, then you go to school and you've got some kind of routine and semblance of order. But other than that, it didn't cross my mind.
But is this part of our character, because we have a similar character sort of trait? Is that part of our character trait? So you end up with some very safe people. I meet some very safe people who are my age, and they've got a pension and they're retired, and you know, they've got their grandchildren, and I sort of look at them and think, oh, okay, you're pretty sorted out. Whereas I'm sort of still I still feel quite young. I don't feel 58, but I'm still sort of trying to get somewhere. I'm not quite sure.
So where are you getting to?
Where am I getting to? I don't know. I'm still building that future. I think that people can't see a future. I think debt's really interesting. I've been in situations where I've been in good finance, and I've been in situations you know, with poor finance, and now I look at cash every day because I like to see some trends,
right,
of where I am, because that's part of my coping mechanism, because I don't want to be in debt anymore, and I want to secure a good future for my family and my children. So I'm sort of looking at that wealth strategy. I think a lot of people don't know how much money they've got. They can't cope because they don't know how much money they've got.
Absolutely. And this goes back to what you said earlier about being in denial. And people don't even open their bank statements or their credit card statements because if I don't look, I don't have to know. And that's all part of the being unable to cope, because you haven't learned the strategies. And strategy one has to be fully aware of where you're at, because unless you know where you are, you can't do anything different. You can't feel different, except for maybe turn to something that will temporarily ease that uncomfortable feeling or that I can't cope feeling.
Yeah, I think, look, coping's really when it comes to debt, you can look at debt and you can work out when you won't be out of debt. You talk to the people you owe money to. If you owe a massive amount of money to a credit card, they'll probably halve it if you pay it off.
Yeah.
And you can actually go on your iPhone, and there's an app, and it will actually plot where you will leave debt in the future. It'll give you a date. Illness is an interesting one as well, because the biggest problem about coping with illness is not knowing what you've got.
Yeah, this is the fear now, isn't it, with the whole COVID thing? There's this not knowing. Have I got it? Have I not got it? Is it a cold? Is it flu? Is it COVID? It's the not knowing, and it's such a new thing that, you know, we don't know because we can't know, and that's something people can't cope with. The unknown is huge. As human beings, we hate it, don't we? We like certainty. We like knowing what's going on.
We like to know where the end is, Vicky. That's the thing.
Absolutely.
Okay? So I was in a situation where I couldn't walk, and all I was saying to the doctors was, when will I be able to walk again? And they just go, well, actually, we don't know. And that's when you can't cope.
Yeah.
If you break your leg, you know that in 6 weeks' time it's going to be mended and you'll be able to walk. You think, oh, 6 weeks' time, I'll be okay by Christmas.
Yes.
And then you get that coping mechanism. If suddenly, you're told you have cancer or leukemia, wherever that might be, that's really scary. And to cope, suddenly your mortality hits you. I think our mortality's been hit during the last few months.
Absolutely. But it's that mindset, isn't it? You were asking, when will I be able to walk? You weren't asking, will I ever be able to walk? You were asking, when will I be able to walk?
I was deluded enough to think, do you know what? I'm going to do this no matter what.
Right. So, but that is that mindset shift that a lot of people need to take. It's that missing bit, because a lot of people, and we are negative bias human beings. That's how we run. We're supposed to stay safe. But when it comes to staying safe and not getting eaten by a lion or a tiger, that's one thing. But when it comes to staying safe, when it's actually detrimental to health and keeping us stuck in not coping, then it's a totally different thing. And to be able to change the questions we ask ourselves, I think makes a huge difference in how we can cope with things. Because it's not can I, it's what can I do to change things? Not can I just change things, what can I do? Because you've already made the decision that there's going to be something. You might not know what it is straight away, but there's going to be something. If you go in with that, I'm going to find it, there will be something, as opposed to, oh, I don't know what to do, so I'll do nothing.
Well, there's nothing worse than doing nothing, is there? But I like the concept there of knowing that eventually it will be okay. I coached Ran Fines, and Ran was great. Ran explained torture to me. I know it's great, isn't it? But one-to-one with Ran, he sort of, oh, I've never been too worried by torture, because with torture, you know that eventually it will finish. There will be an end to it, and there will be an end to this crisis. There will be an end to your debt. There will be an end to your poor health. There will be an end to your alcoholism. There will be ends to everything if you want there to be. It's one of those things. You have to actually pluck up the courage and take the plunge, because at the end of the day, although you've got people like yourself and myself that can facilitate that movement, that mindset change, you actually have to take the plunge yourself. And that's the hard bit of coping.
But I think also the first step is, before you can even take the plunge, is knowing that you have the choice. The ending's not predetermined, right? So we have the choice. It will end. You're absolutely right. But is it going to be the ending that you would like? Or is it going to be the ending that you have decided is worst case scenario, that you've catastrophized it, that you've made your reality? You can choose. And that is freeing.
Well, I find it exciting. I always say to people, look, we're going to go on a journey, and it's a bit like watching a film. Lots of people, when they go and watch a film, already know the plot. They know the ending. They know how much it made at the box office. They know who all the people are. And I think, well, why on earth did you go and watch the film? Because actually, you already know what happened. We're going to go through a process where we're going to watch a film. We don't even know what the film's about.
No.
We don't even know what the subject is, what happens, how long it's going to last, whatever. But we're going to sit and watch this amazing film that you're going to direct. So what's it going to be? And you're the people that are making the choices here. So I think that could be interesting this week.
I think it will be. And the interesting thing is, that's either going to excite people or it's going to scare the pants off them. And for me, that's exciting. For other people, they are going to be like, oh no, where do I start? What if I get it wrong? What if this happens? Whereas you and I are going to be of the mindset, bring it on. What can we do?
That's right. So that's why people go, actually, Vicky, I want you to help me direct my film, because I'm really not quite sure what it is. It's very scary. It's too big. You know, it's like it's eating the elephant one bite at a time. It takes time. And it's time that, I can't shift time. I can shift a lot of stuff. I haven't managed time travel yet. Doctor Who's the only person that can do that. We can't shift time. What we can do is we can go through this process and make our worlds totally different, which is something I think we need to think about this week as we step ahead into an uncertain time and hopefully start coping with things in a better way. So there we go with 20 minutes, my dear. There we go, all done.
So where can people find you, Rory, if they want to reach out to you for some help with coping over the next few weeks?
Over the next few years, they can type Rory Coleman into Google. That's a good one. Or just go to Twitter and at Coleman Coaching, and they can find you, Vicky.
I'm on Vicky Midwood, the Addiction Eliminator, and I am on Facebook, Vicky Midwood on LinkedIn, and Vicky Midwood on Twitter.
She's just Vicky Midwood.
Just Vicky Midwood.
Type her into Google. Look, if you've enjoyed these chats,
I'm going to really quickly nip in and say, folks, just one coping strategy that I highly recommend that if you're not already doing it, start doing it. And I'm sure, Rory, you'll back me up on this. Move your body every day. Get outside, right? Change your environment. Get outdoors, whether it's raining or not. Just get outside for 10 minutes and move. You will think better. You'll feel better. And it's just so important for your mental and physical well-being.
I certainly agree with that. So, look, if you enjoyed these chats, we're going to continue doing them on Monday mornings. If you anything you want us to chat about, let us know. But some feedback would be great. And have a great week. Have a great week, Vicky. And
you too, Rory. I'll catch up with you next week, whatever it brings.